Hi, I'm poet and writer Case Spivey, and today we're talking about pen names. We all have them. All of us. Now, you may be thinking to yourself, yes, I too would like to learn how to name my pen. For example, this one's name is Claudio. Claudio has just come out of the wash. Luckily, Claudio only has one victim. No, but on a more serious note, whether or not to use a pen name is something that you'll have to decide as a writer. I personally have been using a pen name for years. Case Spivey is a pen name, big secret is out, and I have been publishing poetry and short stories to some success under that pen name. Case Spivey will probably always be the name that I publish poetry under just because that is the name I've been using for so long now. However, back when I chose Case Spivey as my pen name, I knew I needed a pen name because my last name was German and really long and very hard for most Americans to spell or pronounce. It was necessary at the time, and I didn't want to use my first name for many reasons, but we'll get into some of that later. So I chose a pen name because it felt necessary at the time. I could not have known that I was going to marry into the best last name for a YA author. I have an incredible name now, and when my novel comes out, it may be published under my current real name because my last name is now Badass. So my name is not Badass, but my last name is cool. At the time, it felt necessary, so Case Spivey will always be what I publish poetry under. Because I've been publishing poetry, I've had to discuss pen names quite a few times, especially with publishers of literary journals, which is kind of how I decided how I feel about pen names. One of the things people always ask is why I use a pen name once I told them, hey, I have a pen name, which you have to disclose. If you're getting paid for your writing with a literary journal, they need to know your real name in order to pay you properly, unless you have your pen name set up as a separate account. And it's a lot easier with Pen Pal these days. When I was first doing it, some of the internet stuff was kind of complicated, so I just had to disclose, hey, this is a pen name, this is my real name. And a lot of them asked me about it. I sort of decided that my thought about pen names is that it's like a superhero identity or like a stage name. Same concept, like Clark Kent by day at work and then Superman at night. And no, it's not that I don't want my coworkers to know what my name is online in the online world. Like, my coworkers can find me just fine. But should I want there to be kind of a break or a disconnect, there's some there. It makes it a little more difficult. It makes it so like patients at work aren't able to just Google me, you know, that kind of thing. And I feel like this is really necessary for a lot of people. Some people are in fields where you really need to have that disconnect. Like, for example, if you're a high school teacher and you're writing erotica, you need for parents not to be able to find you easily by your teaching name writing erotica. Especially if you're, like I said, high schoolers, because that's less weird, but like, what if you're an elementary school teacher? Like, you gotta have a barrier there. And that's not true for everybody. Some of us, like me, and actually like Alexa Dunn, she has a video on this as well, which I will link. She had the same problem. Her last name was hard to pronounce. She was gonna have to choose a different name in order to, like, you don't have to, but because of the way the publishing industry works, going to have an easier time selling in the, especially in the YA category, if you had a name that was going to be shorter and easier and more recognizable than like what my last name was. It was too rare of a last name in the US, so I'm not going to say it on camera in case you're wondering what it was. It's a German name. It's common in Germany. It ain't common in the US. There was like me and my extended family, and that's everyone in the phone book. So I won't be saying it on camera. On the flip side, one of the reasons not to use a pen name is that you want people to be able to find you. You want your high school friends or enemies to be able to look you up by your name and be like, oh, they published this book. That's a totally legit reason not to use a pen name. If you want to be found by everybody, totally fine. On the other hand, maybe you don't want people from high school to just find you willy-nilly all over the internet. Maybe you would rather have a bit of the anonymity. Good reason to keep with a pen name. Another good thing is that if I'm writing things online, like for example, Case Spivey is my online presence. So on Twitter you can find me at Case Spivey, you can find me on Instagram, you can find me here on YouTube. So should someone decide that they hate my guts, they can't look up Case Spivey in a phone book and find my address. It's not there. Nobody is registered to a house or apartment or phone number under case 5e, it gives you a little bit of a barrier. It's a safety net. If you had a little bit more common of a name that you were using as a pen name, or if you had a common name that was your given name, it might be a little bit safer. But it does add a level of safety on the internet to have a little bit of a disconnect, a little bit of a that's not my real name, so you can't come find me just by searching that. Another reason not to put certain information online, you know, sometimes without knowing that you did something that would create a stalker, create someone being angry, someone gets their panties in a bunch and maybe decides to come for you. There are crazy people out there. Like, anytime you're kind of like, it's gonna be okay, just remember, there are crazy people out there. Like, you can't count on everyone being just a normal person. People have agendas. Sometimes somebody gets mad because you're not paying enough attention to them. Sometimes somebody gets mad because they're having a bad day. Like, you can't account for crazy. So sometimes just having that little bit of extra safety is a good thing. Not using your real name online does create a level of safety. Not using your real name in publishing, you know, it's completely up to you. One of the things is someone like, let's use a big one, let's say J.K. Rowling. It's kind of her name, it's an abbreviation, so when she was kind of smaller and getting known, it'd be very hard. Obviously, when she was mega rich, super famous, we all know what her real name is now. But at the same time, she's at a level of stardom, at a level of notoriety where she can afford the kinds of protection that is necessary for someone with that much fame. She can afford things like a camera outside her house, maybe living with a gate around her house, maybe hiring a bodyguard if she's going to an event or somewhere. And that's for someone who is not famous for their face. Being a writer, a lot of people don't look at your face on the back cover. A lot of books don't have a face on the back cover. And a lot of times authors are not recognizable by their author picture. Not having your name connected to your work can be a measure of safety, but at the same time, it's a measure of anonymity. So like your extended family who knows your name is, you know, Bob Smith, and they look up Bob Smith, but you're going by Jeffrey Parkinson, or I just made that up. I don't know if that was a real writer name. It's Jeffrey Parkinson. I don't know. They're not going to be able to find that. And maybe that's a good thing depending upon how you feel about your family too. There's a lot of things to keep in mind. And the other thing is, you can change it. If you suddenly are like getting married to someone and their last name is Excellent, you can change your name legally in real life, because I upgraded names like hardcore. That was my one thing. I was like, getting your name changed is a pain in the butt. But if I'm upgrading names, I'm gonna do it. I did it. My last name was really a struggle growing up because it was really rare and really long. Same thing online. If I've been writing poetry under case 5e for quite a long time, if I decide I want to publish in fiction and it's like, case 5e may not be the name, I could use my real name now, or I could choose a totally different name. Like, there's a lot of leeway in changing names. You can change them at any time, so you don't need to stress too much. If you're like, yes, I want my name on the things that I write, I want to be recognizable by my name, do it. Don't think too hard about it, do it. There may be a lot of reasons why you decide to have or not to have a pen name, and in the end, it doesn't really matter what your reasons are. They're good enough. Pen names are not like naming your firstborn child, and even then, it's not that hard to change a name. Wherever you are at your career in writing right now, this is not the like only time you're going to decide this anyway. For one thing, if you end up traditionally publishing, your agent or your publishing house is gonna have something to say about it. If they think your name is just not working, they may have something to say and they may ask you to change something. And you know what? You can't predict that kind of thing, so don't worry about it too much. If you are self-publishing, just know that whatever work you put into whatever name you're choosing now, you may have to put the same, if not double effort into a name later down the line. But it isn't the end of the world. If you can't decide on a pen name, I chose my middle name, and then, because I like my middle name, I like Kay. I think Kay is a really cool name. And then I went backwards in my family tree and couldn't remember what came after my grandma's generation, made up what I thought it was one day and then found out that the other way was like worse than my real name. But I'd already come up with Spivey, so I stuck with it. I probably have done Spyvey to be like all the Y's and really cool or something, but it's too late. I already started publishing and selling poems. That's the thing. I think I touched on it earlier, but once you start selling, that's when the name really matters, and that's when the publishing house is going to have to know your real name anyway. But I never had a lot of problems with having a pen name. People were totally willing to publish under the name that I wanted them to. They just had to know my real name also. So keep that in mind. You may run into the problem where, like me, my name is Kay and people think it's Kate all the time, or they'll miss letters, but like that's gonna happen with your real name too, unless you're like John Smith, where it's a really common spelling. And even then, what if you're Jon? People are gonna put that H in there. So, you know, there's gonna be ups and downs to everything. What feels comfortable for you and what is working at the stage you're at is the right thing to do. Don't overthink pen names, because yes, there are upsides and yes, there are downsides, and it is totally a personal opinion until you go into the traditional publishing route, and then it's just whether or not the publisher is willing to deal with whatever name you've got. You know, you can't predict it. You can't just like stress about it. Choose a name that you really like, that you can have all your social media be under comfortably, and go for it. And if, like me, you're thinking, actually, I married into a phenomenal name for my book and maybe I'll just publish under that name, then your poetry can be one thing and your novels can be another. You know, there's so many options in the world. Like with many things with writing, too many people with a business mindset have really gotten in and put out a lot of information, because that's what a business mindset does. There's capitalism going on. They want to give you a lot of information so that they can get a lot of reward. But in the end, people were doing this for a long time without all this extra stress. They were doing great, so don't stress about it. There's a little bit of a do what you want and do it well to writing. And sometimes you just got to take a step back and go back to that. That's all I have for you today. Hopefully that was helpful. If not, hopefully you like my Ravenclaw shirt. That's right. I've never owned a Ravenclaw shirt, even though I've been a Ravenclaw my whole life. So now I own one and I'm very proud. Good luck to all of us, and good luck with your pen names in the future. Oh no, you can't see my necklace. There we go. Bye.